Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. We'll be exploring the 4 disciplines of execution.
It's an excellent choice.
This book is all about achieving those really important goals despite, the daily chaos we all face. And they use such a range of examples.
Oh, absolutely.
From Marriott hotels.
To NASA's moon landing.
Exactly. It's fascinating stuff.
It is. It's a struggle we all deal with, right? We get so good at planning and figuring out what to do,
The what?
but then the how part,
The execution.
that's where things get tricky.
This book really seems to bridge that gap.
It does, and it uses these great real-world examples.
It's not just theoretical.
Not at all.
One of the things that really caught my eye was how they talk about using scoreboards to boost engagement.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
We'll definitely get into that. And of course, we have to talk about the 4 disciplines themselves. What are they all about?
Well, the book starts by acknowledging this whirlwind of urgent tasks that pulls us away from our real goals.
That whirlwind metaphor. So true, right?
It is.
I can't tell you how many times I've planned to tackle a big project and then, boom, emails, urgent requests, all those little fires.
You're constantly putting out fires instead of building something.
It's exhausting.
It is. And often those fires, they need attention, sure.
But are they really moving you forward?
Not toward your big picture goals, no. The book actually uses a great example with Marriott. There was this hotel near their headquarters. They did these huge renovations.
Trying to up those guest satisfaction scores?
That was the goal,
So they'd invested a ton in the what?
the guest experience. But the scores,
They did change.
not at all. They hadn't figured out the how. And this is where the 4 disciplines come in. The first one emphasizes this idea of narrowing your focus down to one wildly important goal, or what-he-do.
So ruthless prioritization. Even saying no to good ideas.
Sometimes, yes, to maintain that laser focus.
Like a magnifying glass.
Exactly. Harnessing the sun's energy. You might have all this potential, all these goals, but you need to concentrate that energy.
Onto a single point. Makes sense. And I think they even differentiate between primary WIs for the whole organization.
And then team DUIs for individual teams.
Right. Is that where this cascading effect comes into play?
It is. They use Apple as an example. They're known for innovation, but they're very selective about what they pursue.
It's that focused energy that lets them create those groundbreaking products.
Exactly.
It's crazy how much we try to juggle at once, Does the book address that?
Multitasking.
Uh-huh.
They do. They actually cite research showing that multitasking actually hurts performance.
Because you're distracted. Your efforts are diluted.
Exactly.
So you have your WIG, that one focus, but how do you make real progress towards it?
That's discipline too. It's all about acting on the lead measures, recognizing that not all actions are equal.
Some are more predictive of success. Can you break that down for people who might not be familiar? What is a lead measure? How is it different from a regular metric?
Let's say your goal is to write a novel. The number of words you write each day, that's a lead measure. It's predictive of finishing the novel, and it's entirely within your control.
That's a good one. I tend to fixate on the end goal,
The published book.
but focusing on the daily word count, that feels way more manageable.
Exactly. And the book highlights this with a story about a Canadian oil production facility, CNRI. They invested heavily, but they were struggling to meet their production targets.
They had a clear goal, but weren't getting there.
And the team was great. They just got lost in the whirlwind.
So they needed a lead measure they could actually control.
Exactly. Instead of fixating on overall production, they started focusing on full crews for each shift.
And sticking to their preventative maintenance schedules?
Precisely. It wasn't that they didn't know those things were important.
They just weren't measuring them or acting on them consistently.
Exactly. Which goes to show that knowledge isn't enough. You need to track and measure the right things to change behavior.
So we've identified our WIG, our lead measures. How do we keep ourselves and our teams motivated?
That's where a compelling scoreboard comes in. Discipline 3 is all about keeping a compelling scoreboard.
And, they emphasize the difference between a coach's scoreboard
Complex and data heavy.
versus a player scoreboard.
Designed to motivate the team to win.
I'm picturing a basketball game. The coach has all these detailed stats, but it's that simple scoreboard that gets the crowd going, showing who's ahead.
That's a great analogy.
A good player's scoreboard is clear, concise, and focuses on the lead and lag measures that really matter.
It tells you instantly, are we winning?
And the book mentions this struggling Canadian manufacturing plant that turned things around using a simple scoreboard.
It's a great story.
What was it about that scoreboard that made it so effective?
It was visually engaging and easy to understand. Everyone could see their WIG, their lead measures, and their weekly progress.
And that made them feel invested.
In moving that score forward, absolutely.
That visual element really seems key to making those wins feel real.
Oh, absolutely. It taps into our natural desire to win, to see progress.
Even the toughest goals feel achievable when you can track how far you've come.
I agree.
So we've got our WIG, our lead measures, our scoreboard. What's the final piece?
Discipline 4, Create a cadence of accountability. This is where we take action. It's about establishing a rhythm of accountability through regular, focused meetings.
They call them WIG sessions.
Right.
Are these like normal team meetings, or is there something different about them?
WIG sessions are short, they happen at least weekly, and they're very focused on keeping the team accountable for moving the score forward.
They have a specific structure.
Designed to drive progress.
Can you walk us through that? What actually happens in a WIG session?
First, you review last week's commitments. Did everyone do what they said they would do?
That's where individual accountability comes in.
It is.
No excuses, just an honest assessment of your progress.
Then you review scoreboard together. Are you winning? Where are the challenges?
Where did things go well? Where did they go wrong? What can we learn?
Exactly. And finally, you plan for the week ahead. What specific actions will you take to move that score?
You turn those insights into concrete steps.
And keep everyone focused.
The book has this great story about Jim Dixon, this manager at a struggling grocery store.
Store 334.
He completely turned things around using these 4 disciplines, the WIG sessions in particular.
He did. His store was a mess. Low morale, poor performance, you use it. But he implemented the 4 disciplines and used those WIG sessions to create a culture of accountability.
He empowered his team to own their WIG.
And make real progress.
Instead of just telling them what to do, he would ask, what's one thing you can do this week to move the score forward? He made it their game.
And it unlocked their potential.
They transformed the store's performance.
It's an amazing story.
It really shows how powerful those WIG sessions can be. But how do we keep that momentum going beyond just a few weeks or months? How do we make these disciplines stick for the long haul?
That brings us to building habits of execution. 4DX isn't a one-time project. It's about making these disciplines part of your team's DNA. It's about making them part of how you operate. The book actually talks about the Execution Performance Score, or XPS.
XPS. Interesting. What's that about?
It's a way to track and measure how well a team can execute consistently.
So you're not just assuming you're doing well, you have the data to back it up.
Exactly.
And it helps you spot any areas where you might be slipping up.
Right.
We talked about choosing WIGs. I bet that's not as straightforward as it sounds.
It's not always easy. The book talks about common pitfalls, like making your WIG too broad. They give an example of a company that used total profit as their WIG.
On the surface, that seems reasonable. Everyone wants more profit, right?
Sure, but it's too general. It lacks focus. It's like saying do everything better, which, as we talked about, doesn't really work.
You're spreading yourself too thin. No real impact.
Exactly.
So what are some other pitfalls to mention?
Choosing a wig that's too vague, like become a world-class leader in customer service. It sounds inspiring, but how do you actually measure that?
Right, it's aspirational, but there's no target.
They contrast that with President Kennedy's moon landing challenge.
Land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth before this decade is out.
Right. Specific, measurable, time-bound.
And it united a whole nation behind one goal.
Exactly.
Powerful stuff. So how do we translate that into our own goals at work with our personal lives? Does the book give us a framework for creating effective WIGs?
They have this great tool called the From X to Y by When formula.
Okay, I like that.
It keeps things clear and measurable. For example, you could say, increase customer satisfaction from 75% to 90% by December 31st.
Straightforward and actionable. You know exactly what you're aiming for.
And how long you have to get there.
What about for larger organizations? With multiple teams, how do they make sure everyone is on the same page, working towards that same big goal?
They emphasize cascading WIGs. So you have your primary WIG for the whole company.
Right.
Then key battle WIGs for each department.
And finally, team WEGs for individual teams. So each level contributes to the success of the level above it.
Like a chain reaction. They use Opryland Hotel as an example. Their primary WG was to significantly improve guest satisfaction.
A big goal.
To do that, they broke it down. They focused on enhancing the arrival experience, improving problem resolution, and upping the quality of their food and beverages.
Key battles, and I bet each of those battles had specific targets.
They did.
So individual teams within the hotel could create their own WGs.
Aligned with those battles, the front desk team might concentrate on cutting down check-in wait times.
And housekeeping would make sure those rooms are spotless.
Right, and by aligning their efforts, they actually exceeded their guest satisfaction target.
That's a great example of how this cascading approach can create clarity across an entire organization. Everyone's working towards a common purpose. But not every team works in the same way. Does the book talk about different team structures, like project-based teams,
They do. They suggest that instead of picking a specific project as their WIG, project-based teams should find an area to improve within their project management processes.
So it's about improving the overall system, not just focusing on one project.
Exactly. They could aim to reduce project delays
Improve their on-budget performance.
or try to have less rework after a project's finished.
And their lead measures would target those specific steps within their project management system.
Right.
Let's say a team is struggling with delays, happening all the time. How would they use this framework to fix that?
They might focus on tightening up their needs analysis or making sure they develop stronger business cases. It's about elevating how they execute within their own specific work style.
Throughout this conversation, we've been talking about leadership. It's not enough to just implement these disciplines.
Leaders have to embody them.
Exactly. Can you expand on what that looks like in practice?
Leaders need to really show that they're committed to those WIGs. Through their actions, it's about prioritizing their time and energy, being actively involved in those WIG sessions, and holding themselves to the same high standards that they expect from everyone else.
Walking the walk.
Leading by example.
What are some specific things leaders can do in those WIG sessions to reinforce that commitment?
They can make big commitments, things that benefit the whole team or move that score forward in a significant way. For example, a sales leader might commit to making contracts simpler.
To make closing deals easier.
Or they could find a new training program to help the team get better at finding new clients.
So it's about proactively improving the systems, going above and beyond just managing the daily chaos.
Exactly.
But leadership isn't just about taking charge. It's also about giving people the power to do their best work. How did the book talk about holding people accountable without micromanaging them or making them feel scared?
It's about having clear expectations, regular feedback, and offering support. Leaders need to create an environment where people feel like they can own their commitments, where they're encouraged to excel, not out of fear, but because they feel guided and supported.
And we can't forget about celebrating wins, acknowledging those small victories along the way.
That's crucial.
Does the book have any advice on how leaders can do this effectively?
They say recognition doesn't have to be a big production, a sincere thank you, or acknowledging a specific accomplishment. These little things can have a big impact. It's about creating a culture of appreciation where people feel valued.
And motivated. It's about making people feel seen, appreciated for what they contribute. One thing that really stands out to me about this framework is that it's not about quick fixes. It's about sustainability, about those long-term results.
It's about building a culture of execution, where these disciplines become part of how the team works. They offer guidance on how to do this through consistent practice, regularly evaluating how things are going, and always striving to improve.
So you're transforming execution from a project into a habit, a core skill that helps you get things done. But we're all human. Changing habits, implementing new systems, that can be tough. Does the book talk about how to manage that human element?
They introduce this idea of the 5 stages of change that teams go through when they're putting 4DX into practice.
I'm curious about those stages. Tell me more.
The first stage is getting clear. The team gets on the same page about the WIG, the lead measures, the scoreboard.
It's about making sure everyone understands what they're working towards and how they're going to get there.
Right, there's that initial excitement, that sense of purpose.
We can do this. What happens next?
Stage 2 is launching. This is where you put those disciplines into action, and this is where you often hit the first roadblocks.
Because talking about it is one thing. Actually doing it amidst the chaos of everyday work, that's a whole different challenge.
Exactly. Old habits die hard. There are always distractions, and it's easy to slip back into those comfortable routines.
To get swept back into that whirlwind.
So the key to navigating this phase is consistency. Leaders need to keep reinforcing those disciplines. Those double-eyed sessions need to happen. Celebrate the wins. Keep everyone's eyes on the scoreboard.
Prove that this isn't just a flavor of the month kind of thing.
Show your commitment through what you do, not just what you say.
So once a team gets through that launching phase, what's next?
They move into stage 3, adopting. This is where those new behaviors start to stick. The team starts to own the process.
So they're not just being told what to do anymore. They're driving that progress themselves.
Exactly. It's a powerful shift.
And then as they start to see those results, those small wins.
That takes them to stage 4, optimizing. They're fine-tuning the system, finding ways to make it better, and maximizing their ability to execute.
They're becoming experts.
Their lead measures get more refined. Their commitments are more strategic. Their WG sessions are more efficient.
They're like athletes honing their skills.
That's a great way to put it.
What's the final stage?
Stage 5, habituating. This is the ultimate goal. This is where 4DX becomes part of their DNA, a core competency.
It's no longer a separate program. It's just how they do things.
Exactly.
We talked about Erasmus University Medical Center tackling those hospital-acquired infections.
A great example.
Their story shows how 4DX can achieve specific goals and transform a culture. Are there other examples in the book of organizations reaching this level of, I guess, mastery?
They showcase a wide range of companies, from factories to tech companies. It works across industries. It's not specific to a particular sector or type of team. It's a language of execution that everyone can understand.
Amazing. As we wrap up this part of our dive, what do you think makes the four disciplines of execution so compelling? It's not just a methodology, it's more than that, right?
It's a way of thinking, a commitment to being excellent, and a real belief in the power of people. It's about creating environments where individuals feel valued and inspired to work together to achieve great things.
It's about working towards something bigger than yourself. It's about working towards something bigger than yourself, achieving those extraordinary results.
Absolutely. And it's about acknowledging that it's a journey. There will be challenges along the way.
The book doesn't shy away from that, does it? They really address that human side of change.
They go beyond just the steps and processes. They get into the psychology of it all. What resonated with you about that?
I found their discussion of the 5 stages of change so helpful. It provides this roadmap for understanding what teams go through when they're implementing 4DX, both emotionally and psychologically.
Those stages are really insightful, aren't they? Can you remind our listeners what they are?
Of course, so the first stage is getting clear. This is where the team comes together, they align on their WIG, their need measures, and their scoreboard. Everyone's on the same page about what they're working towards and how to get there.
That's where you get that initial burst of energy. Everyone's excited. There's that clarity of purpose.
Right, we got this. But then the initial excitement fades.
The real work sets in.
Exactly.
That's stage 2, launching. This is where you actually start putting those disciplines into action.
And often this is where those first roadblocks pop up.
Because it's one thing to talk about 4DX, it's another to actually live it day in and day out, especially with all the other demands on your time.
It's easy to get pulled back into those old ways of doing things.
Exactly. Those old habits die hard. There are distractions everywhere. And it's tempting to just go back to what's comfortable.
So how do we avoid that? How do we make it through that launching phase?
Consistency is key. Leaders need to be the champions here. Keep reinforcing those disciplines, hold those UIG sessions, make sure those wins are celebrated, and keep everyone's eyes on the scoreboard.
You have to prove that this isn't just another initiative that's going to fade away.
Actions speak louder than words.
Once a team navigates that launching phase, where do they go from there?
They move into stage 3, adopting. This is when those new behaviors become more ingrained, the team starts to take ownership.
They're not just being told what to do anymore, they're driving the process.
It's an important shift.
It's empowering. What happens is they start seeing some results, some wins along the way.
That leads to stage 4, optimizing. Now they're fine-tuning the system, identifying what can be improved, and really maximizing their ability to execute.
They're becoming experts in the 4 disciplines.
Exactly. Their lead measures become more sophisticated, their commitments are more strategic, those WIG sessions become even more efficient.
It's like watching athletes refine their technique.
That's a great analogy.
So what's the final stage?
Stage 5, habituating. This is what we're aiming for. This is when 4DX becomes ingrained. It's part of who they are.
It's not a program anymore, it's just how they do business.
Right.
We talked about Erasmus University Medical Center, how they use the 4 disciplines to reduce those hospital-acquired infections.
And saw fantastic results.
It wasn't just about reaching that goal, it was about creating a culture of excellence, of doing things the right way. Does the book have other examples of companies reaching this level of mastery?
Oh, they have tons of examples across industries, from manufacturing to software development.
It really highlights how versatile these principles are.
It's not limited to any one sector.
Right.
It's really a universal approach to execution.
As we wrap up our deep dive, I'd love to hear your final thoughts. What is it about the 4 disciplines of execution that you find so compelling? It's more than just a set of tools, right?
It's a philosophy. It's a commitment to achieving excellence and a belief in the power of people. It's about creating a workplace where individuals feel valued and inspired to work together to achieve great things.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the 4 disciplines of execution. We hope this has been helpful and given you some new ideas to put into practice.
We hope so too.
Before we go, let's summarize those key takeaways, just to recap everything we've discussed.
Great idea. It helps to make it all actionable.
So here are 10 things to remember from our deep dive into the 4 disciplines of execution. First, focus your energy on one wildly important goal, your WIG. This will help you avoid getting lost in those everyday urgent tasks.
Second, figure out your read measures.
These are the actions that will directly impact your WIG. Third, create a compelling scoreboard that helps you visualize your progress and stay motivated. Fourth, establish a rhythm of accountability. Use those regular WIG sessions to stay focused and committed.
Fifth, remember those pitfalls when setting WIGs.
Make sure they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Sixth, think about how you can cascade those WIGs down through your organization. Make sure everyone's efforts are aligned with those big picture goals. Seventh, use that from X to Y by West formula to make sure your WIGs are clear and actionable.
Eighth, leaders, you need to walk the walk. Show your commitment to the 4DX process through your actions and empower your teams.
Ninth, don't forget to celebrate those wins, big and small. Build a culture of appreciation. And 10th, keep those 5 stages of change in mind.
It's a process.
It's a journey.
Exactly.
We encourage you to explore the 4 disciplines of execution further and start putting these ideas into action in your own work.
Start small, focus on being consistent, and celebrate those milestones along the way.
Those extraordinary achievements are within your reach. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep striving for those wildly important goals.